But we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all again for joining us today. Super excited about today's session. This is Ebony, Director of Operations with Greenie Youth Foundation. But you all are not here to hear me today and talk to me and kind of hear my story. I have the honor of introducing you all to Stefan Moss. And before we get started, I'll read his bio. So Stefan is an environmental scientist, an educator with a career in the field that spans 20 years. As a scientist, he has published papers on toxic chemicals in the environment, including PCBs, flame retardants, and pesticides. He has worked in the public sector on UN-related projects in the Caribbean, including Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants and the Cartagena Protocol on biosafety. In the private sector, he parlayed his experience in ecotoxicology to work on environmental remediation projects in the United States for Fortune 500 companies such as ExxonMobil and BP. Stefan has taught science at the middle and high school level and has also served as an adjunct professor of environmental science at Georgia State University. He is the principal consultant of the Moss Group, which provides stewardship training for the public and private sectors. He holds a bachelor's degree in chemistry and biology from Lee University, a master's degree in environmental science from the University of Tennessee, and is currently pursuing a PhD in science education at Georgia State University. And I will say Stefan is one of the best facilitators, Greenie Youth Foundation, and partners and friends that we've worked with. So we're delighted to have him this afternoon. You all are in store for some great stuff. So I'm sure you'll have questions. I do ask that you go ahead and put those in the chat so you don't forget, or you can write them down. And then at the end, what I'll do is unmute everyone. And so we'll give you the space if you just want to ask him aloud as well. Stefan has also agreed for us to share some contact information with you all. So Instagrams and emails and things like that. So if you have some follow-up, you can do that. And he's provided us with a laundry list of resources that you all can go through at the end of this. So take notes, but then also know that you're getting a lot of information coming to your email as well. So Stefan, I'm still letting folks in, but you're welcome to start sharing your screen and say hello. And we're super excited again to have you today.
Hi, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. It's really good to share space with you all. I know that this particular circumstance that we find ourselves in is not necessarily ideal, but it's still great to be in your company and to have the opportunity to share my story with you. And I hope to get to know you guys a little bit better. There are several of you on here, but I'm going to try to see if I can reach out to you as best as I can in this virtual space that we have. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I want to open up the conversation with a bit of travel. So I want you to tell me, just go ahead and give me something in the chat box. I want to know your favorite park in the national park system. I think there are like 419 different park sites, and I want to kind of get an idea for, which park has moved you. You guys are working, at your various park locations, but I do want to find out exactly, which park has really kind of put something on you and kind of galvanize you towards continuing this work. All right. Can everybody see my screen? If you can see my screen, just give me a Great Smokies. All right. I see someone's popped in Smokies. Okay, that's one of my favorite parks. Can everyone see my screen? If you can see my screen, just kind of give me a thumbs up or something in the chat box. Let me know you can see what I've got going on here. So of course, the title of my presentation is Careers in Conservation, but I do want to talk about this as a journey, because it's definitely been a journey for me. I'm still on that journey, and you guys are on your journey. You're starting it off. Some of you guys have moved on a bit further ahead than others, but we're all kind of on this stewardship journey where we're looking at opportunities and ways that we can contribute. All right, Boston Historic National. All right. All right. I see some parks coming in. This is very exciting stuff. All right. So I want to share a little bit about my connection to the parks too, as those park locations roll in. Make sure. Let me make sure. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So I've had the opportunity over the course of my 20-year career to visit many national parks. I've been to the Grand Canyon. You can see here. I had an opportunity to hike with a group in the Grand Canyon many years ago. Had a chance to visit the Smokies. The shot on the right there with me in the yellow puff is in the Smokies. I've had a chance to visit Grand Teton in Wyoming. Also had a chance to visit Yosemite in California, Yellowstone, some of the iconic places that some of you have traveled to. Um, and, the parks belong to us, and as you guys have journeyed into this park in opportunity with Greening Youth, I hope that you feel that connection. I hope that you all know that the stories that are told in the parks, they are our stories. And even though there's been issues of systemic racism within the park's history, even though many of the founders of the Park Service, didn't necessarily, care about people that look like us, our stories are intertwined with the story of America. And so those park spaces are our spaces, and we have every right to be there. And as you in turn, and, in these spaces, I hope you feel that deep connection. One of the connections that I made, over my travels in the parks has been at Yellowstone. And, I never thought that I would have a connection to Yellowstone National Park because it's such a faraway place. It's removed from everywhere that, we typically visit. And I got there and I heard the story of the Buffalo Soldiers, and many of you probably know this story. But the Buffalo Soldiers were, an all-black regiment that traveled on bicycle to the park and actually worked in the park for quite some time. And I'm from the Bahamas originally. I'll share that part of my story. But growing up, we listened to a lot of Bob Marley, and Bob Marley had a very famous song called Buffalo Soldiers. And hopefully, you guys have heard that song before. And even though we grew up singing that song, many of us in the islands really don't know the story of the Buffalo Soldiers. And it was such a touching and such an inspirational thing for me to actually learn about the Buffalo Soldiers in that park at Mammoth Hot Springs, and to really partake of that story. And leaving the park, it was just a different experience for me, because not only did I get to do all the sciencey stuff, which was cool, but I realized that people like us, people that look like me, we were in that park. We helped to establish that park. We put that park on the map. And the Buffalo Soldiers, of course, did lots of other work in other parts of the country. But, just like that, there we are, front and center. I see lots of people posting about different parks. Amicalola Falls, that is a beautiful park. And there are lots of these iconic places that don't seem to be connected to us. But as you dig deeper into the stories, what you find is that we're there. One of the most iconic parks, in my experience, as an islander, is the Everglades National Park. And I want to share just really quickly about this park. I'm not sure if any of you have had a chance to travel there, but if you haven't, you need to. The Everglades is kind of a it looks really swampish for someone that doesn't have a trained eye. But there are so many stories of runaway enslaved Africans that got away from plantations in Georgia and South Carolina, and were traveling through Florida, and essentially, set up shop and lived and escaped and found refuge within the national park, within the Everglades. And one of those groups, the Black Seminoles, actually found their way through the Everglades, and took dugout canoes, and actually sailed to the Bahamas. So in my visiting of this park, I actually discovered that some of my ancestors as a Bahamian were actually enslaved Africans that traveled through the Everglades and through other parts of Florida, and got away from chattel slavery by finding refuge in the British West Indies, which is now the Bahamas. So these parks are very, very special to us, and we need to look at them not through the lens of any other ethnic group or whatever. These are our parks, and there are other stories to be told for sure, but we have our place there as well. And it's really, really an inspirational thing, and I hope it inspires you guys to continue the work in conservation as well. So even though I have a connection to the parks, I hope you guys have a connection to the parks. That's not where my story began. So I want to share a little bit about my journey. I grew up in the Bahamas. How many of you have been to the Bahamas? If you've been to the Bahamas, just give me a shout out in the chat box if you've been there, either on a cruise, if you had a chance to visit. Tell me under what context you got a chance to visit. Maybe you went to, on a cruise for a few days. I hope that you guys have had the opportunity to go. I grew up in the Bahamas. Of course, the Bahamas is one of the most beautiful places in the world. The beaches are pristine. But that wasn't necessarily, the whole story for me. I grew up on the most industrial island in the Bahamas. and that island was Grand Bahama Freeport, one of the northern islands. And so even though most people, have a picture like this that just shows the pristine beach, my reality was more like this. All right. What you're looking at here is the Bahamas Oil Refinery company, one of the largest at the time oil refineries on the planet, and it just so happened to be on my island. And I lived about 2 miles away from this particular site. See, somebody had a chance to vacation there in 2013. Oh, and I actually see someone's family's from the Bahamas, so that's what's up. We family. Hope you got some conch somewhere because I'm coming to get some. um, at this particular oil refinery, they refined crude oil, and so one of the challenges about living in the vicinity of this particular oil refinery was the toxic fumes that emitted from the refinery. So our community was a very small community, but we had to deal with toxic fumes on a regular basis. So much so that eventually my family decided to uproot from the small community that we lived in, and we moved to another island, the island of New Providence, or Nassau, which is commonly called. And that's where I spent most of my formative years. But early in life, I had to contend with the reality that even though my country was perceived as being this beautiful, pristine place, even there are forces that create problems for not just the environment, but also for the people that live in those communities. And some of you, of course, might have experienced these similar things where people's perceptions and what's actually happening on the ground aren't always the same. All right. So I left Freeport at the age of 5. I moved to the city of Nassau, which is where most people take their cruises. Um, and I had a very interesting childhood. I was a product of a single family home. My mom, she lived. We moved from place to place, and we had challenges, financial challenges, etc. But one of the things that kept me going was the organizations that I was able to be a part of, and the mentorship that came with those organizations. And so one of the organizations I joined early on was the Boy Scouts. And the Boy Scouts really was a transformative experience for me because I got connected to the land, right? And a part of our journey, all of us, we we learn the person that we're supposed to become. So we go to school, we meet people, all those people, our parents, our family members, they inform us, they help us to decide and to chart our career path. And so looking back on this now, I could see that the Boy Scouts were definitely a part of my life. And I kind of came back to the land later on in life, but looking back on it now, I could see that the Scouts were really a transformative, moment for me. We went on camping trips, we did, boating, we learned rope skills, things that, looking back now, I'm very, very thankful that I was able to do and really helped me in my career as an environmental educator. All right. So you can see that I'm the one grinning. I really enjoyed the outdoors. I've always loved and had a passion for conservation and for, just getting outside and seeing nature and taking care of it. But the person that I really want to point you to in this particular photo is the lady on the far right of the picture. That's my mom. And my mom, she is a warrior, and she's sitting there. And remember, this is the Boy Scouts, okay? So it is a revolutionary act for a woman to join the Boy Scouts and say, I'm going to be a scout leader because I want to be where my son is, and no one's going to tell me no. And that's exactly what she did. And they had to order a special, scout skirt for her. And she told them, look, I'm here. I'm going to join the Boy Scouts and be a part of the organization. And that's exactly what she did. And that's the kind of mentorship that I had as a child. I had a woman, a fearless, bold Black woman that was not afraid to break status quo, to teach me how to be the person that I was supposed to be, to give me those experiences. And those experiences, again, those experiences changed my life. And so hopefully you all have people like that in your life as well, who, from the very early memories that you can remember, they were there for you. They were people that inspired you, that motivated you, that broke rank to give you a shot, to give you the chance to develop into the person that you were supposed to be. All right. So I want to share a little bit of that. That was a very important moment in my life, and it helped to kind of steer me in the right direction. So fast forward a few years, I'm graduating high school. I'm scared. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm a talented kid in the islands with big dreams and no money. And I had the opportunity to, become active in my church, and I'm doing things, but I don't know what the future holds for me. And this my face in this picture, told it all. I was terrified. I was trying to keep a straight face. I didn't know what my future was going to be. I was very optimistic. I had the opportunity in my final year of high school to start a science club on campus and to become president of that club. And I kind of had a feeling that science was going to be in the cards for me. So when I decided to go to college, I decided to pursue science as a career. So I double majored in chemistry and biology. And at first, I thought I was going to go to medical school and become a doctor. However, as you all know, life tends to change course, and opportunities open in kind of weird places. So I did not end up pursuing a career in medicine. In fact, anytime I see blood, I'm just like, ah. So I knew that medicine was not the role for me. So I went to college. I pursued science, chemistry, and biology. When I graduated, I decided to pursue a career in environmental science. And so one of my first jobs was in environmental consulting. And so this is a photo of me. I started working for the Bahamas government, doing some consultant work with an organization called ICF. Now, through this presentation, y'all, I want to open you up to career opportunities. Hopefully, some of them you may be very familiar with. Some of them you may not be as familiar with. So I want to open the door to you so you can see these options that are available for you. So even though I was in the Bahamas after I graduated from college, my 4 years, I went back home because I was broke and needed a job, and I got a job working for the Bahamas government. It was a fabulous opportunity for me because I got to travel. First of all, I did a lot of work in the Caribbean and South America. I attended UN meetings. I worked as an environmental consultant, but through an American organization called ICF. And ICF is one of many companies that hire professionals, right out of college, and gives them conservation projects, sometimes in the United States and other times in different parts of the world. And so in this particular case, they were able to contract me as a Bahamian scientist working in the Bahamas, but for ICF as an environmental consultant. So it was a good opportunity for me. I got my feet wet in consulting. Had a chance to travel, did some local projects. This particular project here is a landfill project. So I started traveling to different islands, and I learned that we had a really big waste management problem in my country. And we didn't have the facilities to manage, rubber, tire waste, heavy metals. We didn't have, any infrastructure for pesticides. And so I was a part of a team that helped to kind of, inventory our issues and how we can correct them. And I still do consulting work for the Bahamas government. Those years that I served kind of opened me up to a network, which I'll talk about some more, the importance of your network, to do some work, to get paid. At the end of the day, your skill sets and the things that you all are learning, those are supposed to translate into opportunities for you to get ahead and be successful. So this was one of my first, jobs. Being an environmental consultant, I was 21, just finished college and looking for an opportunity. And thankfully, there were people there who could open up the door to help me to get in. One of the challenges, though, yes, ICF.com. Someone posted in the chat. ICF is just one of many companies that offer employment opportunities. They have a wide variety of possible career options, but they do have environmental, arms where they recruit scientists and individuals with STEM degrees to take on projects worldwide. So you may partner with the government in South America or maybe some parts of Africa, and you will actually travel to those countries and help to implement projects. So it's a very, very nice opportunity to travel. And that's really one of the good things about conservation jobs. People talk about they want to travel. Man, you get to see all the beautiful places, and maybe not every day because you can see me here wallowing through tires and junk, but there are opportunities. I got a chance to travel throughout South America, Argentina, parts of the Caribbean, Antigua, Jamaica, Trinidad. So you get to see and meet a lot of people. And another cool thing about this particular opportunity was that working for the government is that I got a chance to do some partnership work with the United Nations. And a lot of people think that the United Nations and career opportunities with the UN are kind of like way out there, and you have to move to, Jakarta, or you have to be in Australia somewhere. But there are United Nations jobs right here in the US. And so I actually posted a link as well, the UNEP page. UNEP stands for United Nations Environment Program. And they hire professionals. They hire young professionals out of college, graduate students, students that have a master's degree, or in some cases a bachelor's degree, for many different types of conservation related jobs. You may not necessarily be a scientist or a conservationist or biologist. There are other opportunities as well. And they have internships year round. So please visit the UNEP page. They have opportunities in DC, most of the major cities, DC, Atlanta, New York, Florida. They have jobs, opportunities where you can plug in and use your skill set to help advance a more international mission. And so having that international experience was really key because it allowed me to expand my network. So if I'm traveling to Hawaii, or if I'm traveling to, Antigua or Jamaica or somewhere, or, someplace in the US, I often know someone that I can call. I can kind of, talk shop a little bit because I met them at a UN meeting. And so, and please, if you all have questions at any time, please feel free to post them in the chat. And then when we get to the question and answer period, I'll try to answer those for you. All right. So a very, very important career stop here for me as an environmental consultant, picking up international skills and learning about, worldwide work that I can do. And coming from a tiny island back home in Nassau and Freeport, it was huge because, for a scientist in the islands, there's not a whole lot of opportunities there. So being able to travel internationally and meet people is just very, very awesome and cool. All right. After a while, though, I kind of, after I traveled some and I had a bachelor's degree, I kind of got a bit itchy to go and do some more school. So I took off in 2003 from my opportunity with the BEST Commission, which was the government agency I told you about. And I started pursuing a master's degree at the University of Tennessee. Now, I did my undergrad work at Lee University, a small school outside of Chattanooga. And so this particular opportunity was perfect for me because I knew people in the area. I didn't have a whole lot of money. In fact, I only saved enough money for one semester, guys. And I jumped out really on a wing and a prayer. And I said to myself, I'm just going to believe in myself. So I saved up enough money for one semester. I jumped out there and landed in the arms of a long bearded Harley Davidson driving rock and roll listening professor by the name of Dr. Thomas Wilson, who's on this slide here. And he was a brand new professor at the school that through a partnership with the Tennessee Aquarium recruited graduate students. So we had to work at the aquarium and put in husbandry work at the aquarium. But by working at the aquarium and supporting Dr. Wilson, we got our master's degrees paid for. All right. So again, when for some of you who are thinking about grad school, take a leap. Don't be afraid. Money will come. If you build it, they will come. If you, jump, leap, and the net will appear. All right. I'm just going to put that out there because I only had enough money for one semester and I was counting the days down. I think about 10 days into my classes in my first semester, there was a flyer that went up on one of the billboards around campus, and it said, if you're a graduate student looking for money, looking for, opportunity to fund your education, come and meet with the professors. And I got in there and I was the first person there, y'all. I was sitting there and Dr. Wilson stood up and he said, my name is Dr. Wilson. I work with the Tennessee Aquarium. We're doing research on turtles and I have money. 3 seconds, I was in his office sitting down trying to negotiate how I can get grad school paid for, okay? Because, this was my dream and I knew that, this was my shot and I had to take it. And so I worked for the aquarium for 2.5 years. Dr. Wilson was a very, very important and key figure in my career path. I had, at this point, I had moved to the United States on a more permanent basis. I met a girl, and that whole story. And we decided to settle down and get married. So I'm now really transitioning into life as an immigrant, as a person of color in Tennessee, which is the South. All right. And so I need you guys to understand the complication. Being a scientist in this program, I was the only Black person in the entire program. In fact, the only other Black person in my department was also from the Bahamas, and she was graduating. And she pulled me aside one day. She made me a big pot of peas and rice, and she sat me down. She said, "Stefan, it's hard." She said, "But if you have the people around you, and if you stay committed, you can make it." And she left me there. I was so upset, but she had to go. She graduated, and so um, Dr. Wilson became my mentor, and he was an ally. And I didn't know what an ally was at the time, but I knew that he cared about me. We shared a mutual interest in science, and even though we could not be any more different, I was a Bob Marley listening, reggae loving, Black dude from the islands, and he was, almost the polar opposite of that. But we shared a passion for science, and he understood that, I wanted to make something of myself, and I wanted to be a part of what was happening here. I'm coming in as an immigrant, as a foreigner, and I'm doing my very best to make the impact that I want to make in life. And so he took me under his wing. I'm taking blood from a turtle in this particular picture. He mentored me, and through the aquarium, I got a chance to do a lot of work in high schools and middle schools in the area. And we partnered with several other organizations, and we did some amazing programming for lots of students in the Tennessee area. And I was able to get grad school paid for as a result of this. And I got to meet a lot of really important people along the way. And so, the thing about it is, y'all, this is not a straight line to success. And I hope that, if you hadn't figured that out by now, that it's true, right? I thought I was going to be in medical school, sitting in the front of doctors cutting open bodies, but here I am taking blood from a turtle. But I could not have been more happier in this space because I was doing something that I was passionate about. I always had a connection to nature because of my experience in the islands and in Boy Scouts, and I had skills. I knew that I could, survive. I could ride a boat. The water was nasty. I was used to crystal clear water, not coming home with leeches on my feet every night and having to, have turtles bite me. But that's a part of the journey. And I spent, 2.5 years, and this particular part of my journey helped to prepare me for my future career endeavors. All right. So after graduating, I was still stuck with the reality of often being the only one. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You go to a conference and you're the only person of color there. Or maybe, there's only one other person beside you and it's awkward. Or maybe, you're presenting somewhere and people are, microaggression. What are you doing here? Oh, you're a scientist? It's like, yes, I'm a scientist. I'm here. I belong here. I have research too. My poster looks just as good as everybody else's. And so, trying to find my tribe was a difficult thing. In Tennessee, I didn't have a tribe. The only other person from my, as a kinswoman, she was leaving, and I was the only Black person in my department. So I had to make a life for myself there. So from Tennessee, my family we relocated to Atlanta, and things were started looking up a little bit. I got a job doing environmental consulting at a company called Groundwater and Environmental Services. It was a good job. I had the opportunity to learn about all of the toxic sites in Georgia, and I was able to build on my experience when I worked back home doing toxicology work, at different waste management sites and landfills. I was able to help my company do some work in the Bahamas as well. So it was a good opportunity for me, but I knew that again, I couldn't really stay here. I was the only person of color in the department, and it was a really challenging environment because I was constantly under the gun, and the contract work was very, rushed. Um, it almost broke me. I was getting up at 6:30 in the morning. It was an hour and a half, 2-hour drive every day to work. I lived on the west side of town and had to drive an hour and a half to the east side of town every day. Well, 3 hours total commute, and it almost killed me. And it's funny how some of us, and maybe you all have experienced this as well. You've gotten a job and you thought it was exactly what you wanted to do, and it was fine for a little while, and then you started getting into that job and really getting into it really deeply, and you realize, I don't want to do this. This is not me. I was sitting behind a computer. I was constantly in the field looking at toxic sites. And in the city of Atlanta, there are a lot of Superfund sites and waste sites. And it hurt. It hurt to see the damage that we, as human beings, have done. And I knew I couldn't. It was such a depressing job. After a while, I had to get out of there. And I also didn't have a tribe of people who I could just celebrate the outdoors and celebrate my love of nature and with. And in 2012, I finally found a group. and that group is Outdoor Afro. And some of you may have heard of Outdoor Afro. They are a national organization where they help to get Black folks back into nature. And the CEO of the organization, Rue Mapp, she's a powerhouse. She's an amazing, amazing Black woman, and she has galvanized an entire network of Black people to help get folks back outside. A lot of folks are suffering from nature deficit disorder. They don't go outside anymore. And so a part of the journey for me here was I finally met my tribe. I finally met people who were scientists and geologists and, looked just like me and shared my interests and just love geeking out outdoors and looking at birds and all the fun stuff that hopefully you all love to do as well. And, this moment was very transformative for me. And there are organizations like Outdoor Afro, many nonprofit organizations out there that will hire, professionals like yourselves, graduates coming out of 4-year college or even grad school to help advance their work. She had, a few full-time staff, and there are many organizations like Outdoor Afro out there that you can partner with and do really good work with, helping to, deal with some of the issues affecting our community. All right. Now, I did not work on a full-time basis with Rue, but even as a volunteer and helping her with a program, I got to meet a lot of people, and I got to partner with a lot of people. And some of those opportunities led to other opportunities, which helped me in my career. So don't discount those volunteer opportunities. And I know that probably sounds a little cliche because everyone's like, I want to get paid. Don't play with me. But sometimes you have to give. You have to give of your time and yourself. And all of a sudden, your network is through the roof. And now those seeds that you planted as a giver start to come back to you. If you know what I'm talking about, give me a thumbs up in the chat box. Let me know that you feeling that. All right. And I know that money is very important, especially in this time. Folks are hurting, and we need to make sure that our skill set is respected. And I definitely understand that. At the same time, if there are people around you doing amazing work, and if they're progressive in their work, and you're seeing real change happen on the ground in those grassroots organizations, volunteer in those organizations. And you know what? When full-time doors open up, you're often the first person they call because they've already seen your passion for what they do, and they're willing to extend that branch to you to help you get on full-time. All right. Yes, time and energy, that's currency as well. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And so please, don't discount those volunteer opportunities. All right. Um, so, Outdoor Afro opened up a wide lens for me. I started looking around for other tribes and other people that I could connect with. And this is a part of sharing my journey. So if you notice, the first few slides, I'm just, starting. I'm building my cadre of skills. I'm meeting people that are basically pouring into me. And now at this particular part of my career, I'm starting to pour into others. And I hope that this particular part of the journey resonates with you as well. Some of you have just finished your undergrad, or maybe you're about to graduate. Some of you are in grad school, and it's going to come a time very, very quickly, not too long from now, where instead of people pouring into you, now it's your time to pour into others. Now it's your time to share your story and to share all the things that made you who you are, all of those important steps that have shaped and molded you into the person you are. It's time to share those life lessons with other people. All right. So with Outdoor Afro, I had a chance to take people outside and talk about my experience as an islander and how nature, was such an inspirational place for me, and how, being in nature helped to heal so many of my wounds that I had, growing up as a in a single parent home without my father, and just feeling disconnected from family and disconnected from everything. Nature gave me a connection. Everything always, works perfectly pretty much in nature on its own, and being in nature is just a refreshing place. It's just a place where you can just watch the planet do what it's supposed to do. And so sharing that experience with peers and sharing that experience with students, that's also a part of this work. Not hoarding those experiences, for yourself. And so, as a career, you can look to partner with organizations that can help you share your journey. So this particular organization here that I'm showing you, this is the Rocky Mountain Science and Sustainability Network. And this organization, again, is powered by an amazing Black woman, Dr. Gillian Bowser. And she used to work for the Park Service for many years. And what she does is she has, put together a research faculty. I'm a part of the faculty. And we design research opportunities and experiences for students at Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton, and Rocky Mountain National Park. And so we invite students from all around the country and internationally to be a part of this internship. It's a 10-day kind of academy. And then through the summer, you get paid to go into these national parks, do real science, publish your work in some journals, and get to meet people from all around the country. All right, this is very, very important. Okay, someone sees somebody. Hey, I don't know if that's you. I don't know exactly where you are, but that's awesome. That's awesome. If you want to learn more about this program, it's rmssn.org. I included the link. These are the types of opportunities that you as an individual can be a part of. You can, if you're in grad school, for example, you can be a part of the research faculty. You can help to share your story and share your scientific skills. And even if you're not necessarily thinking about a career in science, these organizations need support. All right. For example, I have a web design background. I used to design sites on the side for my friends back home. And so, I help to manage RMSSN's web presence. And so, even if you don't necessarily have, research skills, you can go in there and help support them in other ways. And there are grants and opportunities for you to get paid and to have your work recognized, financially. So consider, these nonprofit organizations as well as opportunities for you to get your feet wet in the conservation conversation. All right. This group here, I mean, there are people from the Yucatan, there are people from Haiti, there are people from Jamaica, people from different parts of Asia. There are people from Michigan, people from Tennessee. There's people from all over the country in this picture, all over the world in this picture, and that's what this work is all about. Just being a part of that global community of people um, that are doing excellent work. All right, let's keep going. All right, so my my journey has included working as an environmental educator. And so, doing environmental consulting was great, and partnering with nonprofit organizations has been awesome as well. But I realized at a critical juncture in my life that I really wanted to work with students. I think working with Aldo Afro and being able to teach and share my story, and also having a chance to work at a few schools. I had a chance to teach at Georgia State University and work with students in the classroom. I feel like environmental education is definitely an important possible career path, for those of you who enjoy meeting people and enjoy sharing your story with people in a more formal environment. Certainly teaching in the classroom is a potential career path, and you get to impact the lives of the younger generation in a really powerful and dynamic way. And so in my classrooms, whether I'm teaching at a high school or if I'm teaching in a college class, I'm taking students out to the national parks. In this one photo here, I have my family with me. We took some students to a community garden and we taught them about, composting and how to, get a raised bed going. These are all opportunities that, as an educator, you can help introduce students to. So you don't have to do a formal classroom situation as a teacher. You can do, informal education, working at like a nature center or interpretive center. There are lots of interpretive centers around the country. There are lots of places where you can plug in. You don't have to just do the classroom. In fact, my PhD that I'm currently working on looks at informal science education as really the way forward in education for science anyway, especially environmental science. You can't teach environmental science inside of a classroom. I mean, you got to get outside. You have to share the beauty of nature, with the students, and you have to take them out and have them see it. And so I take my students kayaking, I take my students into the national forests so they can see, the connection between, the various organisms and biodiversity. All of those things are really important. And if you're an educator, you can most certainly do that. And you can get paid really well. And during the summers, you can have, summers off to go and pursue other opportunities. So I definitely want to plug in teaching as a potential career path for you as a conservation professional. And you get to impact the next generation every single day, every single day. And it's really a beautiful thing. All right. All right. Uh, along with teaching and, sharing yourself and your gifts that way, people want to hear the stories underrepresented groups and how they, arrive at success in their field. And like I told you earlier, at many conferences and events, I've been the only person of color there, the only Black person there. And people often ask you, hey, how did you become a scientist? especially other younger people, that want to kind of follow in your path but don't know how to get started. So in 2014, I met an amazing woman. Her name is Audrey Peterman. Some of you may know that name. She's from Jamaica, so we shared a Caribbean heritage. And she immediately kind of became my like grandmama. And she launched in 2014 the Diverse Environmental Leaders Speakers Bureau. And this is a bureau where you pull together individuals who have experience with national parks, with conservation, and you plug them into speaking engagements. All right. So some of you are great orators, and some of you love to speak, and maybe you did Toastmasters, and maybe you did, some other work with Rotary, and you love to debate and you love to share your story. Being a keynote speaker can be something you can do after you've amassed experiences. For example, Audrey, she moved from Jamaica and she decided to take a road trip with her husband, and they visited like 250 different national parks around the country. Now she's visited all these parks. She has so much information, so much experiences. People are asking her to share her national park story. And so, she's a journalist by trade, so she can tell her story about her love for the parks as an immigrant moving to the United States. And so she gets booked to share her story. And there are many other people in this particular group here. They're just some of them who also are hired to go in and share their story and to give insight into their perspectives. All right, our perspectives are valuable, and you can get paid to give your perspective on issues in your community. So obviously, we know climate change is an issue that disproportionately affects the Black community, and there are many other issues like that. Toxic air, issues of pollution. These are all issues that affect our community. So if you have insight, if you have knowledge on these particular topics, you can speak on these topics, and you can help people understand the perspective of your community and why these issues are important to us and what we need to do to help solve these issues. All right. So I've worked with this organization for the last 6 years as a speaker, sharing my story as an immigrant, as a person of color, as a scientist. And that's another opportunity for you as a professional if you decide to do that. And maybe you may not, want to talk about science issues. Maybe there are other passionate things that, are of interest to you that you can pursue in this space. All right. So I do want to share that with you all. Some of the individuals in this group are absolute luminaries. There's a lady on the far right here. You might not be able to see her. Her name is Majora Carter. She was one of the first TED speakers. She shared about her transformational experience revitalizing her community in the South Bronx. And just an incredible woman. And then you have Bill Pinkney over here with the camera in his hand. He was a navigator. He was one of the only Black men that circumnavigated the planet by boat. So he has an amazing story to tell. And then you have Frank Peterman over here on the far left, and with the Frederick Douglass look. He's an attorney. He's 80 years old. He's just a treasure trove of stories about the civil rights movement, about Dr. King, and about life in the Jim Crow South. He knows the stories, and so you have experiences as well. Maybe your community was ravaged by some environmental issue. You can share that story, and people would want to hear you and actually pay you for that. All right, so take advantage of those opportunities, and share your story. People want to hear what you have to say, and speak truth to power. All right. So I want to leave. We're coming up to the end of the presentation here, but I do want to say, along with sharing your journey with the people around you, your colleagues, your tribe, the people that even your fellow interns, as you begin to settle into your career and as you move into other opportunities, just really live your journey. When I first got into science as a career, I looked at it just as a job. And as I've gotten older, I realized that no, this is really more of a way of life for me. And I need to share my story, not just with my, students and my colleagues, but also, my family, my kids. So I'm raising my kids. I'm teaching my children the same skill sets that I've learned. I'm teaching them to, tie ropes and do, figure eight knots. And I'm teaching them how to garden. I'm teaching them how to use, their speaking skills to share their story. And so remember, it's always bigger than just even your career and what you're trying to do. You want to help raise the next generation, and that includes the people that are in your immediate circle. So maybe you have a niece or a nephew or a cousin. You need to start sharing your story with them, empowering them. All right. And by doing that, you help to grow the community. You have to give everybody that institutional knowledge to be successful. And so, that involves all of your talents and gifts, not just the ones that you went to college for, not just the ones that you went to grad school for. So, one of my talents as an artist, I'm a musician. I sing. My wife and I, we run a small school. My wife is a professional violinist. And so, as a family, we thought, what could we do to help advance conservation as a family? So, we do music hikes, and we share our conservation story as a family. I talk about my experience as a scientist. My wife shares her story as a musician and a person of color. Her parents are both from Jamaica. So we talk about our story, and we pull in conservation into our music. We share stories about nature. We talk about mountains and rivers, and we take, folks that come hike with us, we take them to the river. We talk, some people in Atlanta have never been to the Chattahoochee River. They've never been anywhere up north to North Georgia to pick apples. So we take them up there, and we share our story as a family, and that's important too. It's not just a career; it's a way of life. And so every opportunity you have, every gift that you have, whether you're an artist, if you love music, produce some music. The National Park Service has lots of gift shops, and they will actually take products from professionals, from audio professionals. So in my case, I produce music. We have songs about nature on iTunes. I did songs about climate change, about the woods. Those are all available on iTunes. And so that's another way to, have an income stream, but also get involved in the conservation conversation. And so utilize all of those skill sets that you have to help live that journey. All right. So with that, I want to, just leave you with a final thought. All right. All of you are, on track to fulfill your goals. I want you to remember that, you're in it for the long haul. So goals stand for genuine opportunities. And these are all opportunities. Greening Youth is an opportunity to intern, to learn about, conservation jobs in the Park Service, and to, maybe consider that as an opportunity. And remember, it's a long-term thing. All right. These are, success is a process. It's a journey that you're on. All right. So if you want to get in contact with me, I'm at themossgroup.us. That's the website you can find me and my work at. If you're on the gram, you can hit me up at the Moss Group. I post a blog there, just sharing insights and thoughts on my work and things that I do. And I'll have any questions. Take any questions at this time. Anybody have any questions for me, please?
Well, let me just start by saying thank you, Stefan. That was amazing. And we really appreciate you sharing your story and all with like 50 L's at the end of it, all the great work that you've done over the years. It's truly inspiring work. But as Stefan said, if you all have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, and I will also unmute you all in case you want to ask it to the group. Don't be shy.
I want to shout out Ashley. I think I know who Ashley is now. She's my Jamaican friend from RMSSN. And if she's in the program, that's amazing, because we talked about this, and I'm very happy for you. I'm so excited for you. Does anyone have any questions?
I see one in the chat. It says, with all of the vast accolades and experiences that you have accumulated from being part of the conservation environmental science community for some time, what is one thing you would say that was the most rewarding?
That's a very good question. It's an easy answer. My kids, seeing my kids walk in the same footsteps that I'm walking in, and being interested in going on hikes with me, and, plucking worms off of the tomatoes in my garden. That's more important than anything else. When I'm dead and gone, if my kids can, stand up and say, my dad taught me how to survive in nature, and how to love and be passionate about nature and about people, and care about people, and to be a good steward. Yeah, my life, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. That's the most important thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Another great question. How do you keep your identity when you are often a tribe of one?
Oh, that's a good one. So being in spaces where you're the only person, and you still have to like hold your head up and go, hey, well, I'm one, but I'm doing my thing. It's tough. I won't lie. When I moved here, I was scared. I remember one time I was on the river doing some work with Dr. Wilson, and we had parted ways, and I was pulling a trap, and there was some turtles in the trap, and this white man, walked out of his yard. His house was on the river, and he had a gun in his hand. And I remember he looked at me and he said, what are you doing? And I told him, I said, I'm a research scientist. I didn't have my Tennessee aquarium shirt on. And he looked at me puzzled, and he wasn't sure what I was doing. I could tell that I'm not sure if he was afraid of me, but I was definitely afraid of him. And you know, nobody else on the river except this black guy, you know, walking around in the river, like, you know, in the front of his property, because, you know, the river kind of, you know, butts up against people's private property. And I just had to just really kind of hold my hands up and say, hey, man, I'm just checking turtle traps. You know, I'm doing some research for the aquarium. And I was able to talk him, you know, into putting the gun away with. And we had a good conversation about fried bologna sandwiches after that. But at that moment, I felt really alone. And so you just have to be confident in, you know, your journey, and be confident in the people who have helped to make you who you are, and just be confident that you can stand tall, and count on your skill sets, and count on your training, and you can do it. You can be successful. When I would get up and give presentations, you know, at the conferences, you have a sea of people that don't look like you, but you still have to deliver, because hey, you know, I'm not gonna back down on the things that I'm passionate about. I love science just as much as you do, and my work, you know, as an ecotoxicologist, particularly looking at pollutants in the environment, is very important work. And so you just have to value your work and know it's valuable, and value yourself and know that who you are also is valuable. And of course, that's true.
Awesome, awesome. We're getting some questions. How
All
do
right,
you
let's do it.
manage your time with your work having such a wide span, from music to teaching, to be a scientist, a husband, a father, a facilitator? You do a lot. How do you manage all that?
You know, I was on a call this morning, and one of the presenters said, if you're a multitasker, that means you do two things or three things really badly. I
Oh
would
no.
definitely say that I have my moments, man. Some days you feel like, yeah, some days you feel like a superhero. You feel like you're really, you know, working on all cylinders, firing all cylinders, and then other days you feel like you're falling short in other areas. I know just in the last few months, you know, teaching my classes, you know, at the end of last year, and then deciding to pursue my PhD in a full-time sense, I struggled, because when COVID-19 hit, you know, I started dropping every ball that could be dropped. You know, I dropped them, because I was, you know, trying to finish papers, and my kids were pulling on me, and you know, it was a lot to manage. And I'm still really in the process of self-care, trying to get myself kind of back to, you know, back to the right mental place. It was just so much work, and it was such a rush to try to get everything done. So, you know, you got to be transparent with the people that are around you. You got to tell them, look, you know, this is, you know, I have to focus my energies here for the time being, but I will, you know, I'll make it up to you. You know, I've made up, I'm still making it up to my kids right now. Uh, and so you have to prioritize where you need to prioritize, but also too, you know, if people know your passion, and they know if the folks close to you, your community, your family members, the people that you work with, if they understand your passion and know what you're about, they'll give you some space, you know, to make mistakes. They'll give you space to, you know, prioritize your time, and they know that you're there for them. And so you have to be transparent with them and make it clear, you know, what you're doing, how long you're doing it for, and all of that. That's very important.
Awesome, awesome. And Stefan, I'm going to combine two of the questions that we have here. So, what advice would you give to students that are trying to figure out after undergrad, should they go straight into conservation, or should they go to grad school? And then, kind of the second part of that, do you think that that opportunity that you had to pay for graduate school is rare?
Okay. Let me answer the first one first. Sorry, the second one first. I don't know. I don't know if it's rare, but I know that you got to hustle. If there are any opportunities available at all in grad school, you've got to jump on top of them, and you have to consider it a very competitive environment. So let me give you an example. So when I got into grad school, I told you guys I saved up enough money for one semester, and there were colleagues of mine who also, you know, wanted to have scholarship opportunities, but they weren't hustling enough. They weren't willing to do the things that I was willing to do. You know, some people, oh, ooh, turtles. I don't want to have to touch turtles and be in the river. Well, I guess you won't get grad school paid for then. You know, you know, it wasn't the most pleasant environment for me, being on the river, because it wasn't an environment that I was used to. I was used to pristine, clear water so I could see all the way to the bottom. But I was forged on that river. I got to appreciate, rivers. We didn't have rivers in the Bahamas. So even though I understood the importance of rivers, being on the river every day really taught me about rivers and how important they were as, source of water for communities. And when they become polluted, how much of an issue it is, for those communities. So no, there aren't any shortcuts. So you got to hustle. Any opportunity to get grad school paid for, you have to consider it, and you have to jump out there and put yourself out there. And if you're not willing to do that, then maybe there might be some other opportunities there for you. But you have to hustle. I wouldn't say it's rare, but I would say you got to work really hard. The first question, run that first question by me one more time. I got kind of lost in that.
Yeah. So what advice do you give to the students who are wrapping up school and thinking, should I apply to grad school or should I go straight into this conservation world and get to work?
If you would ask me that question 10 years ago, I would say go straight to grad school, because, before you know it, time goes by and you get, you start making money and life takes over. But in this current climate, if you have an opportunity to work, and if you find something that's meaningful in between, undergrad and grad, and if it's something that you're really passionate about, and you know that, hey, this is really more so what I want to do, and grad school is kind of hazy, take a job and work and get planted in the areas where you think that you really, really want to be. Because, what happens is people go from undergrad to grad and then even the PhD, and they never have any work experience, and they come out and they really can't do anything. And I know that really sounds bad. I mean, I have a master's degree and I work on a PhD, so I probably point a finger at myself in a way. But there were times in my life where I thought to myself, I don't really know how to do stuff. I have all this head knowledge, but I don't have any experience, like really on the job experience. I felt that way in some parts of my life. And so I would say, in this current climate where people are really valuing, skills that you can actually do, if you're working, if you have an opportunity to work at a job where you feel passionate about it and it'll help you in the long run, take that job. And if you have to go to grad school part-time or something like that, do that, versus committing your all to it and then coming out with a PhD and still not knowing, where you want to end up. Start doing something and thinking about, what type of job or what type of career path I want to take. And let me just add on to that, please. Let me just add, business opportunities are there for you as well. You don't have to just get a job. You can start a business. Consulting, you can do consulting as a business. In fact, I included a link to some business ideas, because one of the challenges of STEM is that who does STEM benefit, right? In many cases, what you find is that many people of color or black-owned businesses aren't STEM businesses. And so we need to start owning businesses, owning STEM businesses, owning conservation businesses, owning labs, owning consulting firms, instead of just getting a STEM degree and going and working for a company that, might not have the interests of people of color. I included a link, I think, to some business ideas as well.
Yep. And I'll be sure to make sure that all the participants are able to get all the resources that you compiled, Stefan. So you all don't worry about that if you missed something or if you came a little late or you were just kind of in the conversation like I was and really enjoying it. We'll make sure that you get all of that information. We are at time, but we have a couple really good questions, Stefan, if you have a couple more minutes, and then we'll wrap up. Awesome.
I do. Absolutely.
What advice would you give interns that are working in this virtual experience? So whether it's school or this summer internship or just kind of life, like what can they do to get ahead, stay ahead, and make the most of their time right now?
Network. Now that we're in this virtual space and we're, on our phones more and we're on social media more than ever, network. Do some searches on your Instagram and look for organizations that are doing work that you think may be important work that you may be passionate about or you may want to be involved in. Send them DMs. Hey, look, how can I partner with you on something? Here are my skill sets. Network. Build your build your reputation, build community, build partnership with as many organizations and people as possible. Everybody's online, everybody's in social media, everybody's on the gram looking at pictures. Make it matter, right? Connect with people, find out what their interests are. You can find me, for example, but there are lots of other people that are out here who are willing to talk with up and coming professionals and share their insights. There are tons of people online doing amazing work. Find them on Twitter, find them on Instagram. If you go on Facebook, all the old folks on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, find them on Facebook and say, hey, look, I'm about to graduate. I'm thinking about graduate school. Can you give me some insight on how I can get ahead? And all of us, the community of people who are out here, will be happy to extend whatever help that we can extend to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. And for the last one, what advice can you give regarding time management and struggling with productivity at times? So someone who gets busy, sometimes you're like, I'm tired, or I just can't touch it yet. What advice can you give there?
Yeah. Pace yourself. Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes a while to, kind of get your energy back, especially if you've committed to a project and it's kind of drained you. Pace yourself. Don't take on too much. I know that probably sounds weird coming from someone like me, but take on as much as you can handle, and don't spread yourself out too thin. So in my case, all of my work aligns with a couple central themes: youth advocacy, STEM, mentoring, environmental education. That's kind of my wheelhouse. Now, I do kind of throw in music, but only from the standpoint of any songwriting I do and any work that I do in terms of raising awareness of certain environmental issues. But like, I'm not out here selling, I'm not out here doing everything. Like, I'm not like selling DVDs or nothing crazy. Like, you have to find the things that you're most passionate about and kind of find your niche and work within that wheel. And if you commit to that, you may have to divvy up time amongst those different projects. But don't spread yourself across too many completely different, fields of study. And so, for example, if you're a marketing person and if you're really interested in conservation, get online and find out all of the companies that are marketing agencies but have, a sustainable business model or trying to be sustainable with their. Find those agencies, track them, find out when they're hiring, see if they have any job expos, reach out to the human resources people. Stay within that wheelhouse, and you'll be fine. And sometimes, honestly, you drop the ball on your productivity, and that's okay too. It's okay to admit that there's a lot going on, but be committed. So if you drop the ball on a project, don't give up. Come back to the table, sharper than ever, ready to work. And as long as people see your passion in your heart and your drive to succeed, they'll give you a chance. They'll give you a second chance if you make a mistake.
Awesome. Awesome. That's perfect. And again, Stefan, I think everybody will agree with me when I say this was like the best hour of the month, of the week, of COVID. So thank you for sharing everything.
I hope so.
No, it was great. We really, really appreciate it. Folks, this session was recorded. And so for the interns, we'll share it with you just to kind of go back over if you want to take notes. But then again, Stefan was so gracious enough to compile a lot of resources and things like that. So we'll share that information with you as well. Also, his contact information's on there. So Instagram, his email. So if you have questions, exactly what he said, that networking, it's really important. And I encourage you to do that. Stefan and I were joking that, we get on these webinars and folks share their contact info. And then like 2 years later, they randomly say, hey, can you write me a reference? And it's like, who are you? So make sure, guys, you have this network, use it, build on it, get to know him. He's definitely making himself a resource, and he's an amazing person, as you all have heard to know. So do that work. But again, Stefan, thank you for all the participants that joined this afternoon. Thank you all as well. And if that's it, we will end the session. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.